kahandaan at kaligtasan. Mga salitang madalas nating naririnig ngayong papalapit na po ang pasukan. Ang mahiwagang tanong para sa atin mga guro, handa na po ba tayo? Ano po ang magiging batayan sa ating kahandaan? May konkretong plano na po ba tayo para sa araw na pagbibigay ng mga gamit pagkatuto sa ating mga mag-aaral? Paano natin masisiguro ang kaligtasan ng bawat guro, magulang at mag-aaral ngayong papalapit na ang pagbukas ng ating taong panuruan? Magandang buhay po sa ating lahat. Pagbati sa lahat ng mga guro, DRRM coordinators at mga punong guro na kasama namin sa umagang ito. From your SDO family SOCMOB, we welcomes you to Contingency Planning for COVID-19 Pandemic, Readiness of Education Sector in COVID-19 Response to ensure continuity of learning. I am your host moderator, Gea Crizaldo Oreta from Alas Asing Elementary School. To start today's webinar, let us first pay tribute to our motherland as we sing the national anthem to be followed by a prayer seeking for wisdom and guidance from our Almighty God.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, pero sa sinaganan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatak tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong panggaw, ay hinatang tula, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nagtitindig, ang pituwing at araw niya kailan ang hindi magtitindig. Lumang ang araw ng warhagit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya ng kantay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Tagapagkaloob ng lahat ng kaalaman at guro ng mga guro. Bigyan po ninyo ng pagkalinga ang aming mga guro.
Biyayaan ninyo sila ng kahandaang hinangin ng aming murang isipan at huwag magsawa pag di makahabol ang turuan.
Pagpalain nawa ang kanilang mga pusong nagdiriwang sa tuwing kami nagwawagi at nag-aalo sa tuwing kami nadadaig.
Pagkalooban ninyo sila ng mahinahong pagtitiyaga, sapagkat ang landas ng kaalaman ay hindi madali.
Paglingasin ninyo sa kanila ang maapoy na diwang nagpapaliyab sa kagustuhan naming matuto.
Tulungan niyo silang makita ang galing sa bawat mag-aaral. Wala sa marka ang halaga, kundi sa pananalig nila.
Ikintal ninyo sa kanila ang walang pagkauhaw sa karunungan. Ang bagong kaalaman at karanasan ay di dapat katakutan.
Turuan po ninyo silang masiglang abutin ang alapaap, kasinsigla at kasintayog ng sarili naming pangarap.
Pagpalain po ninyo ang mga gurong nauna sa amin. Ang nagawa nila ay napapakinabangan pa rin.
Tanglawan po ng iyong mabuting halimbawa ang kaguruan upang makapagtayo sila sa pamamagitan ng kanilang pangungusap.
Upang makapagmahal sila sa pamamagitan ng kanilang isipan.
Upang makapagbahagi sila sa pamamagitan ng kanilang puso. Siya nawa.
So again, welcome po sa ating webinar for today, and allow me to greet all of you a happy World Teachers Month. Kagabi po ay may natanggap akong magandang message about sa ating online registration para po sa darating na celebration para sa World Teachers Month on October 10. Nawa po lahat ay register na. Sabi nga, may paraffle daw po ata iyon. So sa lahat ng mga masuswelteng mga guro, hanapin na ang mga links sa inyong mga school heads at mag-register na po tayo. Okay, so bago po tayo magpatuloy, ang lahat po ay inaanyayahang mag-post ng kanilang selfies dito sa ating FB group. Gamit po ang ating mga hashtag na hashtag SDO Bataan, hashtag Handa Kami, hashtag SOCMOB-DRRM, hashtag SDO Bataan DRRM, hashtag DepEd Tayo, at hashtag DepEd Tayo Bataan. Okay, so ang ating webinar po ay naka-livestream din sa ating YouTube channel, Bataan Adapt a School Coordinator. So, sa lahat po ng ating mga school heads, sana po nandito na rin ang ating mga DRRM coordinators, and ang araw na ito ay magiging produktibo para po sa ating lahat. Planning is critical. Contingency planning and continuity of the plan are important elements to ensure safety. To give us words of welcome and encouragement, please welcome the Taskmaster Chief Education Supervisor of SGOD, Sir Ramon C. Perez.
Magandang buhay. Magandang buhay. With warm greetings, I welcome you all in this webinar entitled Contingency Planning for School DRRM Coordinator and School Head. Robert Schuller once said, "Tough times don't last. Tough people do." Certainly, we are currently under tough times. The difficulties and challenges brought about by the current pandemic have intruded almost every phase of our lives. Walang pinipili ang pandemya ito. mayaman, mahirap, politiko, empleyado, ordinaryong tao, lahat apektado ng pandemya ito. We in DepEd are among those seriously affected. We are affected, especially in terms of the delivery of education. Let us admit it, the ban of conducting face-to-face classes makes it very challenging for us to continue with our mandate. But never is the light of hope dim on our part. We are so tough that no pandemic can bar us from pushing through with our mission. This webinar is an effort illustrative of our toughness. Instead of complaining, we are here to discuss efforts on how to during these trying times. This webinar intends no less than but to assist and equip our teachers with the necessary skills and also knowledge for them to also withstand these difficult times. The contingency planning, that is the focus of this webinar, is aimed at the promotion of awareness of our teachers. And we are here because we are tough.
We are
And
looking
because we are tough, we will last, not this pandemic. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you very much for your toughness. Ingat po tayo lahat. God bless us all and always keep safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for those words of encouragement. And yes, we are looking forward to be equipped at the end of this webinar. Safety, a word that is kept in mind in this time of pandemic. As COVID-19 burst out last March, this impacted everyone's perspective of life and survival. Extending to us his warmest greetings amid his absence is Sir William Roderick R. Falurin, who is now in field monitoring. So, pinapaabot po niya sa ating lahat ang kanyang pagbati sa kabila ng kanyang, kahit siya po ay nasa monitoring sa umagang ito. So, before we move on, let us have our house rules first to ensure that this webinar's objective will be met, and this should be observed during the whole session. So be reminded na tayo po ay hanggang 12 noon. So for our webinar house rules, we have come in early. So we do hope na lahat po ay nasa live streaming na po sa ating FB group and at the same time sa ating YouTube channel. Be present, find a quiet place, be respectful, listen actively dahil ang ating resource speaker po sa umagang ito ay napaka-competent at marami po tayong matututunan. So whatever questions that will come along the way, pwede nyo na po yung ilagay sa ating comment box para po mag-gather yon ng ating secretariat. And at the end of the session, we will have our open forum. So use chat box to ask, and webinar is recorded. So pwede po ninyo iyon balikan anytime pag meron pa tayong hindi malinaw sa ating discussion. So let's move on. Bago po pala ang lahat, gusto ko munang ipaabot ang aking pagbati sa lahat ng mga DRRM coordinators across SDO Bataan, sa lahat ng mga school head na nanonood po sa atin ngayon, sa ating mga district supervisors, lalo-lalo na po sa ating mga personnels from School Governance and Operations Division headed by Sir Ramon C. Perez, sa aming kagandahan na si Ma'am Alma R. Garcia na nasa ating backstage po ngayon, Sir Ray Cruz, and to Ma'am Glo na nasa backstage din po. Hello, hello, and good morning. So mula po sa ating FB Live, we have, let's try muna natin ang ating pa-shoutout. Nangunguna sa ating comment si Ma'am Eileen Ruiz Nunez. Good morning, ma'am. Then we have, good morning, Sir Giovanni Belmonte. Good morning, Ma'am Lorna Villaveray, Julian. Good morning daw po sa lahat ng mga Luz Elementary School teachers of Limay District. Pagbati din po mula kay Ma'am Imelda Orbon from Wawa Elementary School, Bukay. So again po, ang ating hashtag para sa umagang ito, hashtag Handa kami, hashtag SOCMOB DRRM, hashtag SDO Bataan DRRM, hashtag DepEd tayo, and hashtag DepEd tayo Bataan. Okay, so wag pong kakalimutan mag-selfie at i-post po dyan mismo sa ating FB group. And bago po tayo magtuloy-tuloy, isang good news po muna. Kung inyo pong nabasa ang ating division memorandum para sa webinar na ito, number 2019 series of 2020, entitled Division Seminar Workshop on COVID-19 Contingency Planning number 4 po doon sa ating memorandum nakasaad na magkakaroon daw po tayo ng allotted budget. So with that, pinapa-announce po ng ating mga secretariat at ng ating ating survey na makakatanggap ng 100 load allowance ang lahat ng DRRM coordinators. So gusto namin linawin na DRRM coordinators lang daw po ang makakatanggap. So sana all, di ba? So, pwede nyo po yung hintayin at pwede po natin yan asahan, sabi po ni Sir Ray sa atin. Okay, so I think let's proceed. So, hindi rin daw dapat kong kalimutan sa umagang ito ang lahat ng mga nasa backstage natin sa ating technical team. Thank you so much in advance dahil hindi pa rin naman tayo, nagsisimula pa lang tayo, pero thank you, Sir Chad, sa walang sawa po. And at the same time to Sir Brian, nandito din po siya sa backstage. Thank you, sir. Okay? At this juncture, allow me to introduce to you our resource speaker. She is a graduate of Bachelor of Arts in Language and Literature from University of Southern Philippines, class of 2001. She is a CSC eligible level 1 and 2. Started a career as healthcare consultant for Rent-to-Kill Initials of Lanang, Davao City in the year 2001 to 2002. Account Executive of MacMay Cebu Trading Corporation from 2002 to 2004. Corporate Training of Cyber City Teleservice Incorporated in the year 2008. Customer Service Officer of Gain City Best Electric Company. Reservations Officer, Duty Manager, Training and Development Manager, Maharaja Hotel in the year 2012. Training Officer of Civil Defense 3 Regional Office in the year 2012 to 2014. Civil Defense Officer 2 of Office of Civil Defense 3 Regional Office in the year 2014. Training Specialist 1, Office of Civil Defense 3 Regional Office 2015 to 2018. Currently, she is the Health and Safety Department Consultant of Real Steel Corporations since 2018. DRRM Consultant of Provincial Government of Bataan since 2018. And DRRM Consultant of Authority of Freeport area of Bataan since 2019. She is an expert in health and safety coordinator, training and development officer, and public safety disaster risk reduction and management specialist. A competent, effective, and well-driven woman known for her accomplishment in the field of safety and planning. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our resource speaker, Ma'am Glenn Kandari Kanlog Diwa. Good morning, Ma'am Glenn.
Good morning. How are you, Ma'am Gia?
I'm good, ma'am. So, welcome po at we are looking forward for this day na kayo po ay aming kasama.
Oo, magkasama tayo ulit. This is the second time that we will do the contingency planning. And we in the provincial DRRM office, on behalf of my department head, Director Josefina Timoteo, would like to commend the initiatives of the School Division Office of Bataan for initiating this activity, especially to SDS Romeo, Dr. Romeo Alip, ASTS William Roderick Fallerin, CID Chief Milagros Peñaflor, SGOD Chief Ramon C. Perez, and of course, Ma'am Alma, Sir Ray Cruz, and the rest of the team who's making all this possible po.
Yes, okay ma'am, hindi ko na po kayo i-hold. Ibibigay ko na po ang platform para sa inyo. Take it away, Ma'am Glenn.
Thank you, Ma'am Gia, and good morning to everyone. Good morning to our school heads, to our school DRRM coordinators, and everyone who's in the group right now and monitoring this live feed in Facebook or in any other platform. Thank you very much for inviting us. And without further ado, let's move on. Let's go on with our topic for today. Welcome to our contingency planning on COVID-19. This will be the readiness of education sector in COVID-19 response to ensure continuity of learning from the School Division Office of Bataan. Next slide. The scope of my presentation for today will be all of the chapters we will have for our contingency plan for COVID. Of course, the chapter 1, the background, chapter 2, the assumptions, goals, and objectives, chapter 3, risk reduction and school preparedness in COVID-19, chapter 4, we have a response 1, implements the safe school operations guidance with the government and local partners. Next slide. Chapter 5, we will have a response to if COVID-19 case monitored in the AOR of an education sector, might it be an office or school, the context appropriate strategies for continuous learning. Chapter 6 will be the activation, and non-activation. Chapter 7 is the response and early recovery measures for DepEd Central Office, affected regions, and assisting provisions. In the chapter 8 will be the financial requirements. So before we begin, let me give you an overview. Though I know that all of you who have attended our contingency planning session before already have known this, but let me reiterate what is contingency planning all about. As the definition of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, or the UNHCR, contingency planning or contingency plan is a forward planning process in a state of uncertainty uncertainty in which scenarios and objectives are agreed, managerial and technical actions defined, and potential response system put in place in order to prevent or better respond to an emergency or critical situation. In our context for this activity, ito po yung nagde-describe sa lahat po ng gusto nating mangyari when we open our schools on October 5. So we would want to have the objectives agreed, managerial and technical actions defined, the potential response system, dapat naka-in place na po ito. So, another definition of contingency planning that is key to our objective, as the Republic Act 10121 says, the contingency planning is a management process that analyzes specific potential events in a state of uncertainty and establishes response arrangement in advance to enable timely, effective, and appropriate response to such events and situations. Let me just reiterate about the term timely, because for this pandemic, COVID-19, time is of the essence. Very important po yung oras, or else tayo po ay matatalo ng virus. So we need to have a plan. We need to plan ahead and make sure everything is in place before we start our opening on October 5. Next slide. Another definition of contingency plan, this is a scenario-based plan for a specific and projected natural or human-induced hazard or even the pandemic hazard. It aims to address the impacts of the hazard and or to prevent the occurrence of emerging threats by arranging well-coordinated response and enabling efficient and management of resources. I know that almost all of the LGUs, local government units, national government agencies, the funding for now is already depleting. That's why this is a must that we really need to have a plan for a sound expenditures or sound management of resources para wala pong masasayang. And the contingency plan is also a document resulting from a conduct of the city. So at this point, this webinar, this is the new normal procedure on how are we going to come up with our contingency plan. So despite and in spite of the limitations, still hindi po tayo nagpapatalo. We make ways, we make things possible for us to really deliver our mandate. Next slide. So as per the background for the Sendai framework on DRR, we have on priority number 4, 33A, the national and the local government shall prepare or review and periodically update disaster preparedness and contingency policies, plans, and programs. For information of everyone, the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office for now has already updated and integrate the safe and health protocol and standards to our contingency plans for hydromet. We know that in these times of the year, yung mga bare months na natin, nandito lahat halos yung mga bagyo na parating po dito sa ating bansa. And as per Pag-asa, we are expecting, I think, less than 9 or 8 typhoons to go before the 2021. So we need to prepare in the province, in the provincial and at the local level. We need to prepare that whenever, kung sana wag naman muna sana sa ngayon, pero in case na magkaroon po ng typhoon or flooding, we should be ready. How are we going to respond? despite of the existing COVID-19 pandemic. Medyo mahirap po siya, pero we need to plan for ahead para po in case na mangyari po yung baha or typhoon or even earthquake ka, na while nandito pa po yung pandemic, we want to ensure na in place po ang ating mga sistema, protocol, standard, despite of the coexisting pandemic. So, nakalagay sa Sendai framework, it's not just about a mandate, but it also a responsibility on the end of the local government and the national government agencies as well. So, ito po yun, yung mga legal basis natin for having the contingency plan. Next slide. So speaking of a national agency, of course, specifically to the DepEd, Department of Education, the central office has issued a memorandum that it was dated September 4 of 2020. So it is set requesting an electronic copy of regions, divisions, and school contingency plans amidst of COVID-19 and for other hazards. So, if I'm not mistaken, the deadline of this is set in September prior to the opening. However, due to circumstances that we are facing right now, especially in the education sector, we may not be able to beat the deadline for this, but for sure we will deliver. Through this, ito na po yung ginagawa natin. Ito na po yung pagpaplano po natin for COVID-19. And hopefully, after this, we will be able to apply, to deliver, not just to comply, but of course, we understand that it is really a must to have a plan for COVID-19. So with that, nakita nyo na po, narinig nyo na po yung mga kautusan ng mga legal basis natin coming from the national, international, national government, and of course, your respective agency, the Department of Education. So let me iterate as well the importance of the contingency planning. First, we have benefits. It helps ensure availability of resources. Yes, because in the plan, it should be indicated where and how should we be getting the resources whenever we will be needing it. Next is contributes to enhancing networking and coordination. For this, especially the pandemic, the COVID-19, coordination is the key. We cannot fight the COVID-19 alone in personally, in our family, in a community. If it's individually working na hindi po nakasynchronize, I doubt we will be able to fight back, no? Matatalo po tayo without coordination. So this, especially in these times, ito po yung kailangan po yung coordination, a whole of society approach. So mapa-private, mapa-public, mapa-individual, down to the community, mapa-national, regional, provincial, local level, we need coordination. So kung may plano po tayo, everything must be in place. When it comes to coordination, sino ang kakausap, sino ang tamang kakausapin, kanino dapat i-coordinate, i-force po ang mga information. Next, it helps to protect lives. So the bottom line is, if we have a system that is working well for the management of prevention, preparedness, and our response, specifically, all this will boil down into protecting lives, not just the lives of our students as we are mandated for, but also definitely our own lives. Kasi kailangan din po natin yung safety sa ating mga sarili-sarili bilang po mga guro. para po makapagpatuloy po tayo sa pagsiservisyo. So kung wala pong sistema na mag-ensure po ng ating safety, what will happen in the next few days, especially that we are facing the new normal, the new system for carrying over the mandate of the continuity of learning. Napakahirap, pero magagawan po natin yan as long as we will agree, we will decide to have a specific system that will work on us, on our respective areas of responsibility. Next, we have the elements of CP. So, saan po ba kinakailangan yung contingency plan? Let me check the list. Of course, natural hazards, human-induced. We have already this one for, I think it was last year. Gumawa po tayo ng contingency plan natin for flood, fire, and earthquake, I think. For crisis management, yes, kailangan din po yung contingency plan. Planned events, sudden increase of displaced population, sudden shortage of funding, and of course, the epidemic. So, kailangan po magkaroon po tayo ng contingency plan for this COVID-19. Next. So we have objectives for this webinar. So upon completion of this webinar, the participants will be able to first, reduce the impacts of this pandemic through appropriate formulation of planned activities on mitigation and prevention, preparedness and response for COVID-19. So safety is the paramount. How are we going to carry on our mandates safely? No? Na hindi po, of course, level of exposure is there. However, we can put in measures on how are we gonna do it, papaano po. So, at this point, ito po yung i-anticipate natin na matutunan natin paano natin gagawin. Next, number 2, familiarize the steps in formulating contingency plans for the school personnel and learners. Safety. Kung isa po kayo sa mga naka-attend ng contingency planning workshop po natin last year, expect a little bit of tweaking. Meron po tayong mga hindi gaanong susundin dun sa template because the reason, first and foremost, is kakaiba po ang hazard na ito, ang COVID-19 na ito, and it requires different types of response activities as well. So, meron pong tweaking on the side, on the part of the template for the contingency plan that we used to know na kung ano po yung meron sa atin na binaba po coming from the national. Because a plan will not be good, effective, kung hindi rin po siya nag-fit sa mismong environment po natin. And number 3, you are expected, every school is expected to draft a school-based contingency plan for the COVID-19. Ayan po. Yun po yung ating ating objectives na sana po ay ma-achieve natin pagkatapos po ng webinar na to. We don't discuss muna the timeline, but these are the 3 objectives that we need to achieve. Sama-sama po. So, samahan niyo po ako. Sabay po nating lakbayin kung paano po natin magagawa. Una is ang ating mandato na kailangan nating mag-provide ng contingency plan. At pangalawa is we will learn by heart maintindihan, no? Hindi lang sa isip, kundi sa puso na ito ay kakailanganin natin gawin, hindi lang para sa ating mga estudyante, sa ating mga learners, pati din sa ating mga sarili at sa mga pamilya po natin. So with that, I think, Ma'am Gia, meron pa pong i-insert bago po tayo. I think everyone is now excited na mag-start na po tayo. But then again, wait, there's more. I will be giving back the platform to Ma'am Gia first. Ma'am Gia,
Yes,
back to you.
ma'am. Thank you so much para dyan sa ating preliminaries. Yes, we are looking forward na mai-discuss niyo po sa amin in toto yung ating topic for this morning. Pero, time check po muna tayo. It's 9:42. Siguro, mag-health break muna tayo for 2 minutes, I think. Gusto lang din po muna naming i-remind ang lahat na mag-selfie po at mag-post gamit ang ating mga hashtag. Handa kami, hashtag SOCMOB DRRM, hashtag SDO Bataan DRRM, hashtag DepEd tayo, and hashtag DepEd tayo Bataan. At the same time po, yung ating mga links para po sa ating evaluation and attendance will be posted at the end of the webinar. So we are hoping and we are looking forward po talaga na ang lahat ay magstay until 12 noon. Okay, so health break po muna tayo. Then we will be back at exactly 9:45.
45.
Laging handa! Laging handa! Bahat at tuyot, sunog, lindol, bagyo. Mga kalamidad na likas sa ating mundo. Napapahamak ang buhay at kabuhayan. Kaya naman kailangan ng paghandaan.
Maging handa, maging alerto. Tungkulin to ng bawat mamamayan. Kaya tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat dapat na maging laging handa. Tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat dapat na maging laging handa. Laging handa.
Kalamidad ay maaasahang darating.
Sa di inaasahang oras.
Kaya naman hindi na dapat hintayin. Unahan na habang di pa natataranta.
Maging handa, maging alerto. Tungkulin to ng bawat mamamayan. Kaya tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat dapat na maging laging handa. Tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat dapat na maging laging handa. Suriin mo mabuti ang iyong kapaligiran. Saan ka pa nakatira? Diyan ba ay bumabaha? Tuwing ka magpagkain, kumot pang sindi, first aid kit. Mga gamit pangligtas ng buhay dapat mabitbit. At sakaling lumindol, sumabog ang duka. Meron bang matagdaanan palayo sa kasawian? Panahon na ay malupit at ang hangin hagupit. Mabuti na lang na tayo ay laging nakahanda. Tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat dapat na maging laging handa. Tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat laging handa.
Okay, and we're back. During the health break, ma'am, tayo po ay in-entertain ng ating laging handa National DepEd DRRM jingle. Siguro, isang bagsak ng pa-shoutout po muna ako, Ma'am Glenn, bago po tayo tuloy-tuloy sa ating sa inyong discussion po. So, uunahin ko na ang napakaganda at napaka-sexing PSDS of Limay District. Hello, Ma'am Elma Dizon. Also, good morning po sa lahat ng mga teachers from Pintor Elementary School to Ma'am Helen Cortez Mendoza. Good morning po. From Palili Elementary School, Samal District, good morning. And good morning din po sa lahat ng mga teachers from Bataan School of Fisheries, lalo na po kay Ma'am Jean Ramirez de la Peña. Yan, marami na po tayong mga pa-shoutout sa ating FB group. Good morning po from YouTube, Sir Sonny Villanueva of Mabatang National High School. Also from Abuhay District sa Lian Elementary School to Ma'am Charito Malibiran. So, sa YouTube channel po sila nakatutok ngayon. To Sir Oliver Nugid, good morning po and watching from Pagalanggang National High School. So, reminder dear participants na tayo din po ay naka-live sa ating FB group at the same time sa ating YouTube channel. At ang ating mga selfies po, huwag po natin kakalimutan, hashtag handa kami, hashtag SOCMOBDRRM, hashtag SDO Bataan DRRM, hashtag DepEd tayo, and hashtag DepEd tayo Bataan. Okay, so may we call on Ma'am Glenn to join us? Ayan, Ma'am Glenn. Yes, ma'am. And we're back. So, hindi na natin patatagalin po to, ma'am. Iiwan ko na po kayo sa platform. Take it away po. Excuse me, Ma'am Glenn. Yes, ma'am. Nakamute po tayo.
Okay. Ganun talaga pag live, ano? Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
Okay na po. Loud and clear, ma'am. Go ahead po.
Alright, sige. Ulitin ko po. Ayan. Ako yata yung super excited. Okay. So, as mentioned earlier, sabi ko po, meron pong tweaking or kakaiba pong mangyayari sa procedure, sa process po ng ating contingency planning ngayon compared to what we have last year. So, instead of presenting to you the per module of the process of the contingency plan, I will be presenting to you the draft of the contingency plan for COVID-19 of the school division office. However, magkakaiba po tayo sa school, kung sa school na po na CP, magkakaiba po tayo at some portion of this plan Mainly because iba po ang ating mandato. So, may mandato po ang ating school division kung ano po ang kanilang roles and responsibilities over to the schools. And then, of course, kung tayo dito sa mga schools, iba na rin po ang ating mandato. So, implementation-wise, policy-wise, etc., magkakaiba po tayo doon. So, let me run through, hindi run, dapat lakad lang. Let me walk you through chapter per chapter sa ating pong draft ng plan. Samahan niyo po ako at sabayan para po sama-sama po nating mas maintindihan at makagawa po tayo ng ating draft at the end of this webinar. So, to start with, you are seeing on your screen the contingency plan, the first page, the first page of the plan, which is the title, Contingency Plan for COVID-19 Pandemic. Yan. Okay. At meron po yung nakalagay sa baba, yun pong Readiness for Education Sector in COVID-19 Response to ensure continuity of learning. So at this point, nakalagay po dito, Schools Division Office of Bataan sa baba. So on your end, sa school naman, you need to put the name of your school in here. Okay? Sige po. So next page niyan, following that page is of course the table of contents. Alam na po natin ito, lahat po ng na-mention po kanina sa introduction, the scope of the presentation, as I mentioned earlier, that the content, wala tayong ibang pag-uusapan kundi yung content ng inyong plano. So all of those, lalagay po natin dito sa table of contents. The same thing. So, ito po pwede po itong copy-paste. As in, pare-pareho po dapat ang ating, ang laman ng inyong table of contents. The next page is the chapter 1, the background. So, you will have the introduction. So, the introduction would, of course, iikot po siya doon sa information about the COVID-19. So we will make it COVID-19 in worldwide view, tapos sa Philippines, tapos sa Region 3, and then sa province of Bataan, and then down to your locality. So the information is available actually in any research or even online. Meron po tayo. Just don't forget to catch kung saan nyo po siya nakuha. Or even, itong plano na to ng province, you can call out the introduction portion kasi ito din naman eh. And then, magdadagdag na lang tayo dito sa dulo ng information of your COVID-19 of the localities. Ang meron dito sa division na plano, these are the activities undertaken by the provincial government of Bataan. So the activation of emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases, transforming other LGU facilities into medical healthcare facilities. Lahat po yun ng mga ginawa ng provincial government nakasaad po dito. So after this, you may also take the actions taken of your locality, the municipality of, example, the municipality of Dinalupihan. Ano po ang mga naging actions, no, ng inyong local task force na for COVID. So, i-inject na lang po natin dyan. So, the importance of that is specifically to inform and include the efforts na meron po tayong existing efforts against our or efforts for fight against the COVID-19 of the locality. Next page naman yan is the letter B, which is the hazard identification. We understand pagka sa contingency plan, Nakita niyo po kanina when I discussed saan po kinakailangan ang contingency plan. So lahat, natural hazard, human-induced, pandemic, crisis, etc. But when we discuss about hazards, ang dami pong hazards meron tayo. So meron po tayong formula. Merong formula on how to determine the top or the most important or the most priority na gagawan po natin ng CP, ng contingency plan. So, makikita niyo po ito, this is also existing on your other CP. No? Sa localities po, meron din po ito. So, kung ano pong hazard meron ang inyong mga localities, ito po yung mga naka-indicate. Ang magbabago lang po is, of course, we will now add. Kasi for sure, yung mga CP po natin, yung mga hazard identification po natin, hindi po natin na-identify yung pandemic before. Sino ba mag-aakala na yun nga, tatamaan tayo ng ganitong pandemic? However, para lang po sa information ng lahat, way back in 2016 when I was with Office of Civil Defense pa po, the Department of Health conducted a workshop pertaining to the preparedness for the preventive measures and response operations for a pandemic. Meron na po nitong ginawa. So, siguro on our higher office level, like in the region, maybe they were able to come up with a plan for the pandemic. Hindi lang siguro na pababa or talagang na i-reiterate po sa local government units that we also need to prepare CP, contingency plan for pandemic. Now, given that, since nandito na tayo sa sitwasyon natin ngayon, we will add the hazard pandemic and then lagyan po natin ng kanyang anatomy, kanyang probability, ang kanyang impact, average, and then for this plan ng STO, definitely, sa laki ng impact nitong pandemic na to, no questions asked, nag-number 1 po siya that we really need to put in or we really need to draft or come up with a plan. So again, isa lang naman po ang impact probability na nakikita natin, pwede na rin po natin itong i-copy, i-adapt sa inyo din po mga class. Okay? Next to that is the hazard to plan for COVID-19 pandemic, the anatomy of the hazard, which is the COVID-19, the root causes, early warning signs, triggering factor, and the existing mitigating measures. Nakikita po ba, nakakasabay po ba sa screen? Or do you have another screen? Nasa table of contents pa. Sir Chad, can I request technical assistance for... Okay. Next. Okay. There you go. Ayun. Can we get back to the previous page, please? Yeah, there you go. I am discussing about the anatomy of hazards of the COVID-19 pandemic, the root cause, the early warning signs, the triggering factors, the existing mitigating measures that we do. So, the same thing, these are all generic. So, pwede na po natin itong i-adapt dun po sa ating plan. Next page, please. The next information is the pandemic hazard scenario generation. So in here, we will discuss about the impact to the education sector. Again, this will all be generic. Pwede pong i-adapt para din po doon sa inyong mga plans. The COVID-19 scenario will be on a standard pa din po and generic to all the plans of the school. It says, alam natin na yung contingency plan will be based on the worst case scenario. So yung pinaka-worst po natin na scenario, as stated, ito po yung worst case scenario ng division. So might as well, this will also be the worst case scenario for the schools. Ang nakalagay po dito, due to the continuous elevation of the data of COVID-19 infection in Bataan, the IATF has declared enhanced community quarantine where movement of non-essential personnel, including children, were restricted. Okay? And then work from home. Wait, nawawala yung akin. Work from home arrangement was implemented and purely online learning was conducted. There you go. There you go. Thank you. Okay. I understand that majority of the modalities of learning that we will implement after October 5 is modular. So we will be using modules, and then there will still be movement of people like picking up and submitting the modules to a specific location. So meron pa pong ganon. And worst case scenario is when tataas po ang case po ng COVID-19 sa inyong locality and that the local government will impose a lockdown or the segmental lockdown as we called it, na involved po, what if involved po ang ating perimeter. So, yung mga school perimeters po natin, kasama po doon sa ila-lockdown na area. So, how are we going to move? How are we going to proceed with our learning and education procedures kung naka-lockdown po ang lahat? Ano po? So, that will be the worst case scenario on that. Kailangan po tayo mag-work from home arrangement as in everyone. So that is what we are really preparing for. Okay, next slide, next page. Okay, the impacts on human lives, it's the same. All of this nakalagay po sa table natin will be standard, generic po. Pagka sinabing standard at saka generic, pwede po natin itong i-adapt. Bali, ito na rin po ang lalabas po na table dun sa ating mga contingency plans. Next. Next slide, please. Next page. Ayan. I won't dwell so much with this first few portion. Okay, wait. With this few portion of the plan, kasi halos majority generic na po ito, but I need to discuss, I think, this table number 1, the estimated number of dead, probable, and suspect cases. Now, in the contingency planning process, we need to identify our anticipation. Mag-anticipate po tayo na in our school, in our areas of responsibility, school and offices, ay meron pong magkakaroon po na suspect, magkakaroon ng exposure maging probable, at maging positive. Dito, diretso kaagad nating naging dead eh. Naging positive muna, and then naging dead. We need to at least anticipate. So, at this point, itong 412, these are the the population that is parang ano bang term? What will be the right term to use na ina-anticipate natin na magkaroon, maging suspect, makasama, we have 1,000 probable and we have 20 deaths. Hindi po natin muna i-identify dito whether this will be teachers, learners, or parents po ng ating mga estudyante. Pero we are anticipating this figure na ito yung mga magkakaroon na maging exposed at mai-infect po ng ating nai-infect po ng COVID-19. Now, in the case naman of schools, kailangan yung ibangga yung population, total population po ninyo ng inyong school teachers, non-teaching personnel, and any support staff po na pumapasok po sa school. They are the highly risk po na mga personnel. So out from that figure, you will take a look at the anticipation natin na if ever, because we do work from home arrangement na sa ngayon, ang gagawin po is almost siguro, if I'm not mistaken, kalahati po ng ating workforce ang pumupunta ng school physically. Am I right? Tapos out of that 50%, we need to call out the figure, no? Kung saan natin, kung ano ang ilalagay natin sa magiging suspect, magiging probable, magiging positive, at eventually dead for COVID-19. No, it's morbid, pero we need to anticipate because malaki po yung impact ng isang teaching staff, lalo na yung teaching staff or critical dun sa pag-prepare po ng module. Kung siya po ang magka-COVID, the next thing or the next question there is, sino po ang magre-relyebo sa kanya? Habang siya po ay naka-quarantine ng 14 days or even until 21 days, or even more if ever na magkaroon po ng severe case ng COVID-19. So that's why we need to put figures in this table number 1. Etong table number 2 din naman po, these are mainly the exposed population of your school. So lahat po, kahit wala po sa school, kahit nasa bahay lang, still it is exposed. Di natin alam anong activities nila, but then considering that they are within your jurisdiction as learners and of course staff, teaching or non-teaching, kasama po siya lahat dito. So magbabago lang po tayo ng title dito sa box. Instead of you put the private school, wala na po dito. Tanggalin na po natin itong isa na lang po siguro. So teaching, non-teaching personnel, staff, and then learners. I am not sure if there are other classifications pa na po pwede na hindi na belong dun sa tatlong mention ko. So you may be able, as long as the table 2 represents the whole population of the school, including teachers and non-teaching and learners. Ayun po. Ayun. Next page, please. Let me proceed with the chapter 2. This is the assumption, goals, and objectives. Again, to begin with, this is also generic kasi hindi po pwedeng iba po yung goal and objectives ni SDO, iba din po ang goal ng school. So dapat synchronize po tayo sa kung ano po yung gusto nating mangyari. So at this point, the assumption, the goals and objectives will be, and next page please. Sige pa. Ayan, the assumption, it is assumed that classes open on October 5. Blended learning arrangement, including the limited face-to-face, is allowed. So minimum health protocols and standards are imposed to ensure the safety of learners, teaching, and non-teaching personnel. So this will be our assumption. Now, the goal of this plan is to determine the risk reduction and preparedness activities of education sector, the DepEd Bataan, on the support to the government by providing the risk assessment, contingency, and response plan for COVID-19. So basically, ang goal natin ay to provide support to the local government kasi at the end of the day, hindi po pwedeng kapag ka may nag-positive po sa COVID sa DepEd, ay sa DepEd lang. Damay po ang ating local government unit. That is why we need the coordination, we need the cooperation of our local government unit by providing them the copy of our contingency plan. Na kapag ka po meron pong nangyari, meron pong exposure, may nag-positive po, this is how are we going to do it or to manage it. Definitely, kasama po sila doon sa procedure. And the number 2 goal is to set the response mechanism and the implementation of the safe school operations guidance with the provincial government and local partners. Ayun. So, ang kakaiba po dito sa pandemic na ito is there is meron pong binababa si national government pababa po, region, province, down to the local level, na mga guidelines, ng mga protocols that we also need to concur. Okay, we need to follow, we need to abide, etc. However, given that the local government has an autonomy, ibig sabihin, it has a system that indirectly, hindi naman po pwedeng, kasi meron nga namang mga penalties and violations, diba, kapag hindi sinunod yung national, meron pong sistema, si local government unit, that if it thinks na ito yung mas makakabuti sa local government unit niya, sa locality niya, might as well impose this kind of policy or procedure. However, dadaan po sa legality. So yun po yung ibig sabihin, because we have multi-jurisdictional, ano tawag nito? With our national, regional, and regional, provincial, down to the local level, meron kasi niyan, so we need to weigh and balance. Na hindi una is the policy works for us, especially in the education sector, but number 2, the policy does not deviate to the national guidelines. So, ganun po siya. Kaya kailangan pong maayos nating mapag-isipan kung ano po yung mga activities na dapat po nating gagawin. We have specific objectives. Sige po, pwede pong next page. Specific objectives align and harmonize with the National Contingency Plan and with the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Councils. Ito na po yung sinasabi ko kanina na yung kung ano man yung mga guidelines po na binababa. Specifically because the Department of Education is one member of our NDRRMC down to the regional, provincial level. So, ganun po yun. Hindi po tayo po pwedeng mag-deviate. So, mag-establish lang tayo ng coordination and communication mechanism sa ating, on the end of school, maybe not the central office, but the division office, ang i-mention niyo po dito. Again, disclaimer po, kapag sinabi pong generic dito na po pwede pong i-adapt, make sure na yung statement po natin ay akma din po sa ating setting. Ano po? So, Next is develop context-appropriate strategies for continuous learning to allow pupils, teachers, and schools to utilize flexible remote home-based learning, which may, next page, ayan, include homework, assignments, reading material, radio, TV, online content, etc. Lahat po ng paraan, ibig sabihin. And then provide guidance for continuing capacity building for DepEd offices and schools. Support and identify needed equipment and supplies to reduce the impacts of COVID-19. This is very important. Ayan po. So next page will entail the chapter 3. Ito na po, dito na po ako magsa-start na magbigay po ng diin para sa ating contingency plan. In each chapter, meron po tayong tatlo. We have the principles and approach, we have the institutional arrangement, we have the specific activities na kailangan po natin gagawin per chapter. So with this chapter, risk reduction and school preparedness, this will entail all the activities, the programs na kakailanganin po natin gawin to ensure to target that the risk will be reduced and the school is really prepared. Our objective, our principle for this is to ensure the continuation of the formal and non-formal education despite of the existing health threats due to COVID-19. This is our primary mandate. And singit ko lang po at this point, since having mentioned our mandate, me personally as a co-public servant, I would like to give my appreciation and commendation to all the teachers out there for your steadfast spirit na po na behind or despite and in spite of this COVID-19 pandemic, behind the fears and pag-aalinlangan para sa ating sarili at sa pamilya, tuloy pa rin po tayo sa ating mandato bilang pinagsumpaan po natin na tayo po ay sasangguni sa ating napagsumpaang profesyon na ipagpatuloy ang pagbibigay po ng education. So maraming salamat po at sa lahat po ng mga guro po natin. Anyways, balik po tayo sa principles and approach. Yon, our primary mandate, our primary objective for this is to continue the education and the learning. And then number 2, to ensure school community, learners, teaching and non-teaching staff are protected from infection and transmission. So these two, itong dalawang ito ay medyo magkasalungat po siya. Unang-una is we will carry on our mandates to continue with the education. And then number 2, we need to ensure that we are also protected. So exposure ang ating pinakakalaban po dito. How are we gonna do it? We have institutional arrangements. Ibig sabihin, meron po tayong mga kailangang sundin na mga guidelines, mga memorandums, etc. Nakautusan na galing po sa taas. So, ito po yung mga nakalagay dito. You just need to have a copy first and read it. No? Siguraduhin pong basahin itong DO 018 Series of 2020. These are the policy guidelines of the provision of learning resources in the implementation of the Basic Education Continuity Plan. Ayan, lahat po ng mga nakasulat na yan. Anyway, dalawa lang po yan sa ngayon, dyan sa institutional arrangements natin. But you need to go through with that details. Now, given the specific activities on how are we gonna achieve our objectives and our principles, nandito po yung School Division Office po ng Bataan shall create advocacy program to sensitize the school community, teachers, parents, students on preventive measures against COVID-19. Ngayon, at this point, ito yung kaibahan ngayon ni division office sa specific school. Kasi si SDO, siya po ang mag-create ng advocacy, ibababa po ito sa mga school. So basically, the activity po ng school ay ang pagpapalaganap na po ng advocacy program na binigay po ni SDO. So, contextualize na lang po, i-contextualize na lang po natin dito on this portion, the letter C, kung ano po yung specific na gagawin ni school para ma-carry on ang ating mga advocacy program against COVID-19. So, sinabi po dito na dapat lahat ng school ay nagpa-practice po ng safe health measures. So, ibig sabihin, si school, siya naman po ang mag-i-implement on the ground. So, ano po ba yung mga safe health measures po natin? Of course, yung yung wearing of face mask, face shields, regular disinfections, temperature screening, contact tracing form, health declaration form, and etc. So, kailangan si school head po, ma-ensure po na ito ay ginagawa po sa ating mga respective schools. So, nakalagay na po siya dyan. Though, of course, I know that it has been a practice na to ensure na lang ang ating continuity at ang correct implementation on the ground. That is the key. Ano po? So, lahat din po ito, you can go through, and if it's applicable to your school, you need to retain, you need to adapt. Pagka hindi po, maybe reward or something. The next one is, andito po, may activity po tayo, may activity po si SDO, na sinabi niya dito, all school activities should be done with considerations for health safety protocols and issuances of the locality. Kasi we understand there is, meron pong pagkakaiba yung ating mga local government units na meron pong iba na nag-issue po ng kanilang protocol or standards na hindi po, nasa kanila lang po applicable. I am talking about specific LGU such as of Bagak and Pilar. I know na meron po silang mga issuances, no? Mga ordinances na binigay po na dapat sundin ng kanilang mga constituents. Kaiba dun sa mga inisyo ng other local government units. So, as a specific school, you need to make sure na naka-align po ang ating mga activities din po dun sa mga issuances ng ating local government units. Now, in this case, in the case of the SDO, ayan po, yun yung mga executive orders, mga IATF resolution numbers, resolutions na inisyu po ng provincial government of Bataan. Ayun po. So, nakalagay po siya dyan lahat. So, whatever it is, dapat mag-abide po tayo, especially because we are also having our, of course, we are in consideration to our mobility as well. More on, ganun po yung mga issuances natin pertaining to the mobility. Ayan po. Next is the protocols or the flow of the coordination. Ayan po. This protocol is being implemented in a specific organization or area, such as of, let's say for example, ito po yung sa SDO. Sa SDO office po nila, na kapag unang box po, upon entry to the building, dapat naghuhugas ng kamay, may foot pad, may forehead temperature, na nati-check ng security personnel, tapos nag-fill up po ng health declaration. Tapos, kapag nagkaroon po ng temperature na 36 to 37.5, pwede po nilang i-allow na mag-pass through or pumasok po sa kanilang opisina. Pero pag nag-temperature po siya ng 37.6 and above, ang gagawin po ngayon, hindi po i-allowed na pumasok po sa premises ng school division office at i-advise na to consult the health facility. Ngayon, kung meron pong mga sintomas, lalo na hindi po siya ipapapasok sa premises. So ngayon, if you're going to adopt this structure para sa school, na ganun din, hindi natin maiiwasan, may pupunta po doon sa inyong school na meron pong mga nararamdaman or nilalagnat or yung mga ganung mga bagay, ganung mga sitwasyon, hindi rin po natin sila maaaring papapasukin doon sa ating school. May intercept na po sila right there sa gate pa lang po. Pero my recommendation po dito is sana we will have a line of coordination agad sa BHERTS po natin to whichever is, let's say for example sa barangay. Kasi kung papauwiin na lang po natin siya ng ganun na lang, hindi kasi natin masiguro if talagang ano po siya ng COVID, infected po siya ng COVID or anything virus. Ang importante po, why do we need to refer them to the BHERTS? For proper management. Kasi yun na po yung pinaka-start yung may ma-intercept po tayo na may mga sintomas. So, this will be part of the cooperation of the school or the education sector to the local government units na katulong po nila tayo sa pag-early detection. Hindi naman natin sinasabi na lahat ng may lagnat ay may COVID na din. No, it's not that. Hindi lahat ng inuubo ay may COVID na. No, it's not that as well. Hindi po ganon. It's just that early detection can be a key for prevention ng COVID-19. Di naman natin sila isusuplong sa BHERTS just because may COVID na sila. Of course, we don't know it. It's just that ilalagay lang natin sa tamang perspective yung paraan po, proseso na kung papaano po mamamanage natin ang paglagana po ng COVID, not just in our school, but also in our community. Kasi, kung papabayaan po natin, okay, yung school yung unang nakadetect na meron siyang symptoms or nilalagnat siya. And then, ang ginawa ng school ay pinauwi lang, hindi na po inasikaso, pinauwi lang. Yung tao na yon could infect, if ever na siya positive, may COVID siya, could infect either your learner or the family of your learner that will affect the school procedure soon, eventually. So, parang tulong po natin sa ating community that if we can intercept, early symptoms, ilagay na po natin sa tamang perspective. So, itong diagram na to, pwede pa po natin i-develop, i-enhance pa po natin, ilagay po natin yung box na yon kung saan po natin sila dapat i-coordinate kapag meron po silang mga ganitong klaseng sintomas. Okay po? So, the same thing sa school, if you're going to adopt those procedure, maglagay po ng another box sa baba, na yun po yung gagawin ng school, either the emergency management team, emergency response management team, or kung sino man po ang in charge po sa management ng operations po natin sa COVID-19 prevention. Next slide, please. Next page. Okay. While observing the health standards, okay, ito na yun yung insert protocols, implementing administering classes, while observing the health safety standards. Okay. At this point, we will adjust with the current situation that we are on a modular modality of learning. But eventually, kung pwede po siyang magbago, kung pwede pong i-allow ang face-to-face, kung pwede pong i-allow ang entry na ng mga estudyante sa schools, eventually po and that's we cannot tell the timeline or the timetable how long or when will it happen, but eventually it will. So, in case po na magkakaroon na po ng ganon, whatever our current practice, malalagdagan lang po siya ng mga precautionary measures para po ma-carry on. Una is of course yung learning continuity of education and safe pa rin po. Now, to guarantee safe return to school for students and teachers, the following safety measures must be implemented to avoid new wave of contagion. So, meron po tayong before entering the school, ito po yon, face mask, temperature checking, disinfection, lahat, disinfection of bags, ayan po. Go straight to washing area and perform hand washing, ayan. I think pinakita ito ng other countries, I think Japan, na meron silang demonstration on paano pag bumalik na po yung mga estudyante sa school. And then, inside the school premise, sige po, pwede pong paakyat. Ayun po, maghuhugas. Ang napansin ko lang po talaga dito ay talagang maghuhugas po ng kamay, magme-maintain ng social distancing, magsasanitize, of course, nandun pa rin po yung face shield at saka face shield lang, walang face mask. Ilagay din po natin yung face mask dito, nasa loob ng classroom. Okay. Now, inside the classroom, go directly assign seating arrangement, maintain the social distancing, face mask all the time. Ayun, nandito pala nakasulat. Implement hand washing every after class if possible. And then magsasanitize, mag-alcohol every hour or between classes. During break time naman, lunch time naman, perform proper hand washing before and after eating. Eat inside the classroom while the respective seating arrangement. If possible, bring their own food. Yung mga ganito po, napaka-detalyado na siya. So, dismissal of classes. Sige po, paakyat na lang po. Naka-line for social distancing. Dapat naka-mark po yung ating mga perimeter areas. Next po. We have needs. Okay. For those activities that have been identified, we have needs. So, kailangan po nating ilagay kung ano po yung needs. Ano po yung mga activities or arrangement to meet the needs? Sino po ang dapat gumawa or responsible? At saka yung time frame po kung kailan po siya dapat simulan gawin. So, in this case, for the SDO plan, ang need po ay kailangan ma-monitor yung compliance ng mga protocols and health standards ng mga schools po natin. So, ang gagawin po ni school division is mag-organize po siya ng compliance committee. So, mag-a-assign po ng tao para po sa magmo-monitor sa mga schools. Ngayon, si Sir Ray, wala pa pong nilagay dito kung sino pong i-assign niya. Siguro to be announced later. At kailan po yung time frame na ito, yung pag-organize. And then the rest of the activity follows. The other one is infrastructure and facility provision. So, Ang gagawin po niya dito ay help coordinate with the provision for hand washing facilities per school. So, meron naman na po nito existing, but I think with the COVID-19 pandemic, we need to increase the number of our hand washing facilities kasi iiwasan din po natin yung pipila na mahaba dahil lang para lang magugas ng kamay. So, increase the number of the hand washing facility per school. So, siguro yung sa school naman na activity nito, of course, yun po yun. Ang need naman nila, increase the number of hand washing facility. Ano yung activities and arrangement nila? Siguro in coordination with the SDO or the local government unit para po ma-supplyan at magawan po ng paraan para magkaroon po ng maraming hand washing facility yung school. Sino po yung in charge na makipag-usap, ilalagay po dito sa portion na to, at kung kailan po dapat ginagawa. So it's the same thing. This you see a particular table before. Ang magkakaiba lang is yung ilalagay natin ng mga needs, activities na kakailanganin po to address the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please. Next page. Ayan. The chapter 4. Okay na tayo sa preparedness. We're good with the readiness of the schools, the facility. Let's proceed to the response 1. The first response is to implement the safe school operations guidance with the government and local partners. Ito na po yung operations natin. How do we carry on the continuity of learning? So, as mentioned earlier, majority is modular. So, yung procedures po natin ng pagdidistribute, pagko-collect ng mga modules po natin, dito po natin ngayon yun ilalagay. So first, again, we will have the principle and approach. Ang sabi po dito, i-identify po natin yung design strategies, platforms, and actions for continued teaching, lessons delivery, assessment, and learning for all during the period without putting the health and safety of teachers, learners, and education administrators at risk. So mainly, this is the description of the procedure po ng ating gagawin for the learning modalities that we choose for our school. Identify and support the harmonization of all resources from the local government and other stakeholders, including private sector and other partners of education sector response to COVID-19 at all levels. At some point, there are schools na nahihirapan po doon sa distribution ng ating modules. Specifically, ang dami pong dahilan. Like, una, we need to adhere to the health standards na dapat hindi po magka-crowding, hindi po magkukumpul-kumpul dun sa school na para kumuha po ng module. What else? Ang dami pong health standards na kailangan comply. So, kung pwede pong coordination with the barangay, whatever will be the workable and feasible po sa inyong mga localities, yun po yung ilalagay ngayon natin dito sa activities. So, pwede po bang mailagay natin sa taas? Okay, pa-change po ng page. Sa baba pa po. Okay, again, institutional arrangement, kung ano po yung mga bawal, hindi pwede sa barangay, yun po yung ilalagay natin dito, barangay or sa LGU. Sige po, pababa po ng konti. Sige pa po. Ayan, medyo madami ng issuances tayo for that. Okay. Ito na po yung narrative, protocols of flow coordination. At this point po, nakaano na po siya. Ito na po yung mga activities na ilalagay nyo, mga schools. Ilagay nyo saan kukunin ang module, sino ang kukuha, kailan kukuha dito po na portion na ito. Tapos, lagyan nyo siya ng yung diagram para mas madali pong sundan. Tapos, in-narrative po natin. Maglagay po ng narrative explanation po ng diagram po ninyo. Okay. Next po. Needs and activities, definitely you will identify ano po yung kakailanganin po ninyo para po ma-carry on yung ganong klaseng procedure sa pagbibigay po ng mga modules at pagkukolect ng mga modules, etc. Still, you need to put the activities, you need to put the responsible or the agency or office, at saka po yung time frame. Yan, next po. Okay. Another response, this is the chapter 2. So we're good with our first response. Ito po yun, focus tayo sa pagbibigay ng continue
Ma'am, excuse me po. Ma'am Glenny. Ma'am Glenny, sorry to interrupt, ma'am. Naka-mute po kayo.
Okay. I'm back.
Yes, ma'am, you're back po.
Okay. I'm sorry, saan po ako na?
Dito
Saan
po,
po ako
ma'am, sa chapter
response
5.
to?
Apo.
Oo, sige, sige. Thank you. Thank you for that. Ayun. So, principles and approach natin. Ensure continuity of learning or the office operations despite of the exposure or the monitored case ng COVID-19. Okay. So another one is to ensure the referral mechanisms are in place. Should anyone from the learning community, either any one of your staff, teaching, non-teaching staff, may possibly infected with the COVID-19. So, diretso na po tayo sa baba. Ano po yung gagawin talaga? Okay. So, for the specific activities, we will use the visual medium to its maximum potentials when access to school will be disrupted. Okay. Lahat po ng nakasulat dito sa bullet na to are all means or other means of delivering education to our learners. Now, dun po sa baba, let me just show you something. Sige po. Sige pa po. Sa baba pa po. Let's get back to that later yung reporting. Okay. Here. Sa SDO office po, kapag meron pong exposure, let's say for example, my staff si Sir Ray, and then meron siyang kakilala, friend, kapamilya na nag-positive po sa COVID na nakasalamuha po niya. So, right there and then, dapat po open ang kanyang communication to inform the office. Hindi po pwedeng mag-secret dito. Okay? It's a mandate na kailangan you need to inform your management that you are exposed to a positive case. So, after that, regardless kung papaano siya na-inform, let's say for example, text lang, kumbaga wala siya sa office during the time, tapos in-inform siya na-expose ako. So right there and then, hindi na siya po pwedeng pumasok kasi na-expose na siya. Now, let's say for example, na-receive niya yung info na nag-positive yung pinsan niya, nasa office na siya, tapos nakausap niya kahapon yung nag-positive. So, nasa office siya ngayon. So, right there and then, we need to suspend the work in that specific office kung saan po siya exposed, kung saan po siya pumasok. Now, let's say, for example, sa SDO, ilang buildings ba meron? Sige, sabihin na lang natin 2, 3. So, yung isang building na yon, kung saan siya pumasok at doon siya nag-report, doon lang po yung i-suspend po natin. Muna. After the suspension of the work, we need to make sure that we follow the referral mechanism of the local government unit. Later, I will explain that to you, the referral mechanism. Then after that, of course, we need to submit for contact tracing in case po that the BHERTs will be contacting you. So you need to submit yourself to them. Next is, we will observe the DOH guidelines on expanded testing. Okay, let me give clarification. Yung pa-RT-PCR test po natin na initiative po ng local government unit, meron po siyang prioritization. So, pinakaunang dito yung pa-prioritize is if you are part of the contact tracing umbrella. Kapag na-contact trace ka, kinontak ka ng BHERTs, you need to be scheduled for RT-PCR. Ang pagpapatest mo nun, cargo po siya ng local government. Either po, i-charge po sa inyong PhilHealth or the local government will shoulder it for you. So, yun po yung number 1. Number 2, prioritize po na itetest ang ating mga healthcare workers. Number 3, yung mga returning OFWs, mga LSIs po natin. Oo, yun po yung mga nakalagay sa mga prioritization. Ngayon, kung wala po kayo doon, hindi po kayo priority na ma-RT-PCR, I think the next step niyan is you need to have it on your own. Or else, mag-aantay po tayo dun sa pila. Dun sa, di ba may mga priority? Ayun, so matatagalan po pagka wala po kayo dun sa expanded testing na priority. So yun po siya. So ngayon, after which, dapat ipa-disinfect din po natin yung facility. Yung nakalagay po dito, pwede po siyang i-request sa PEO. This is in the case of the SDO. But in the cases of schools, pwede po natin itong i-coordinate sa barangay or sa local government unit, or alam ko meron din naman po kayong mga budget for this, for disinfection, kasi you have a regular regular disinfection activity, tama po ba? So yun, so at least dito you will be given options kung kanino po tayo makipag-coordinate for disinfection of facility. And then the next one, impose the requirement for health declaration and implement office working scheme. So after po na-disinfect, i-ensure po muna na yung mga ibang staff na hindi po na-expose ay the same yung standard na check ng temperature, and make sure they're okay, tapos face mask, face shield, lahat-lahat. So po pwede na po magpapasok. Yun po dun sa mga staff na talagang hindi po na-expose dun sa possible natin. Ngayon, pag lumabas po yung confirmed case na positive po siya, either asymptomatic, mild, severe, or existing protocol of the government on the case management shall be applied. So, I will discuss to you this one. Sige, pwede pong pa-check, pababa. Sige po, sa baba po. Ayan. Okay. So this is the patient flow in the HCPN po natin. Sinusunod po ito ng mga local government. So, the patient flow in healthcare provider network. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na contact tracing in care of BHERTS. Ayun. So, kapag kagaling sa BHERTS, depende po sa assessment, kailangan ilagay ka na po sa primary care facility. Ayun po. Kapag may severe ka naman po or kung may critical symptoms ka ng comorbidities, may diabetic, may ano sa heart, etc. O di kaya old age, yung ganon. Idediretso na po siya sa ating referral hospitals. Ang referral hospitals po natin dito that is managing severe cases of COVID is the BGH&C. So sa BGH po talaga kayo dediretso kung severe or may comorbidities po kayo at saka symptomatic, yung may symptoms na talaga. Okay. So doon po naman sa mga mild confirmed cases, we have the Mariveles District Hospital that manages all of those types ng positive cases ng COVID. So dadalhin po kayo doon sa Mariveles kung meron po kayong mild symptoms, gano'n. Kapag sumobra po or yung mga spillover ng Mariveles District Hospital, dito po ang sasalo sa Dinalupihan District Hospital. So those are the hospitals na inassign po ng provincial government on the management of cases natin sa COVID. Ngayon, Urani District Hospital is the clean hospital. So, ibig sabihin, no COVID cases po doon. So, any other medical concerns po, doon po natin siya nilalagay. Ayun po. So, yun po yung mga hospitals. So, when it comes to asymptomatic, dito po natin sila nilalagay sa ating temporary facility treatment, yung hindi po hospital. So, ito po yung mga facility na naka-ready ng mga LGUs. Kasi hindi naman po sila symptomatic. So, it's just that ma-control na po sila na nasa isang place lang po sila. Doon po sila ilalagay. And then, ang nagmo-monitor po noon is, of course, the LGU, ang ating po mga RHUs, mga MESO, and then, of course, reporting sila to the PHO sa province po. Yun. So, yung education sector dito, magpo-fall siya dito muna before sa contact tracing ng BHERTS. So dito po lalabas na dapat every schools should have coordination with the BHERTS. Yung ma-intercept pa lang natin coming from the gates or the border ng ating mga facilities sa schools, we will refer them to the BHERTS. Bahala na po si BHERTS kung saan po yung, ano po yung magiging assessment, and so on and so forth. And that will follow this flow. Ayun po. So the same thing sa mga schools. Kung ano po yung procedure kanina, suspension of work, disinfection, submit for contact tracing, lahat-lahat po, pwede po din natin pong i-reflect sa ating procedure. In management, pag nagkaroon po tayo ng exposure at saka eventually positive case. Ayun. So next po, I will discuss the back to work procedure after recovery from COVID-19. This is very critical because of the stigma. You know, I already discussed with the survey that every local government unit po sana ay magkaroon ng isang facility, treatment facility for asymptomatic na mga, lalo na yung ating teaching personnel. Not because, hindi dahil sa nagpapa-espesyal tayo, pero we have a very critical role in our community. So hindi po maiiwasan na ang stigma ay mag-remain until longer times, di ba? So, kahit nasabihin natin na meron tayong anti-discriminatory resolutions ng ating local government unit, we need to protect our teachers. Meron naman po na lahat po ng mga information pertaining sa mga cases natin ay talagang hinahandle po na with high confidentiality. Pero kung naisasama naman po sila doon sa facility ng community na nagpa-positive, hindi po talaga natin mapipigilan yung pagpa-pass on ng information. So I'm not sure if everyone will agree with me na we need to have facility just for our teaching and non-teaching profession and teaching and non-teaching staff for schools na sana may naka-ready po in case. In case lang po na meron po magka-cases. Kasi ang kalaban natin dito is yung stigma. Anyways, I will go back to the discussion of back to work procedure. If an employee is returning to the office after COVID-19, ipo-provide po niya itong mga requirements na to. Una is dapat may negative result na siya ng RT-PCR test. Meron pong doctor's clearance na fit to work na siya. May certification po coming from the BHERTS na completed po niya ang kanyang quarantine procedures. Also, we will require transparent communication. Kasi, siya lang po ang nakakaalam ng ano po yung nararamdaman niya, di ba? Kung kunyari ako, nagka-COVID ako, tapos teaching staff ako, I complied all this ABC na clearance, so okay na ako. Pagpasok ko, still, ako yung nakakaalam kung ano yung nararamdaman ko. Kasi may mga cases po ngayon na mga recurrent, yung bumabalik po na yung virus. Kagaya, I will cite Secretary Anyo, 2 beses na siya nag-positive. So, may chances pa rin talaga na, so, kung ako, babalik ako sa work, galing ako nagka-COVID, kailangan, required ako sa transparency ng communication to my management, to my organization, kung ano yung health status at nararamdaman ko. Kasi if not, kung itatago ko, hindi ko alam, nag-develop pala siya ulit. So, isa ako sa magiging dahilan para ma-infect na naman yung iba. So, ganun po. I-require po talaga siya. So, this must be handled by definitely on a side of the school heads para po sa mga staff po ng ating respective organization. And then number 3, social distancing may be required for the workstation areas and offices, classrooms. Hindi naman po sa discriminatory or anything, it's just preventive na po pwede po mag-rearrange ng, working stations para po consider natin yung mga flow of air, yung ventilation, etc. So, po pwede po yung gawin as preventive measures. Yun po siya. So, next. Okay, another table for the needs and activities. Doon po sa na-identify natin na activities. Okay, let's proceed to the next chapter, which is the activation, deactivation, and non-activation. Nilagay po natin dito na upon start or opening of the classes, effective na rin activate ang ating contingency plan. Kasi yun talaga po yung purpose. However, on our case now, I think the opening will be on Monday, and then we are yet to finalize or even draft our contingency plans. Pero alam na po natin, at least meron na po tayong advance info, advance knowledge po pertaining to how are we going to manage. But kailangan po nating i-provide itong plan na to because this should be activated on October 5. Ayun po. At nakalagay din po dito ang mga trigger kung bakit po natin i-activate ang contingency plan. Of course, ito na yung sinasabi ko, opening of school this October 5. Hanggat hindi po available ang vaccine, inadequate pa po ang ating quarantine facilities, at saka possible increase po ng ating numbers ng cases. So, again, kahit saan naman dito yung titignan, applicable na i-activate na talaga natin ang ating contingency plan. Next slide, please. Yung deactivation naman, until further na we can see the normalcy of the situation, transition to the early recovery, and the mobilization of the response activities. I think the question on this deactivation is, sino po ang magde-declare na i-deactivate na ang ating COVID-19 plan? The answer is, it should be the head of the organization. So on your case, pagdating po sa school, kapag nakita na po natin itong tatlo na mayroon ng tawag nito, yung hindi na po wala na po yung threat. So we can declare na okay na tayo sa plan natin, deactivate na. Pagdating naman po sa SDO, hanggat meron pong school na nag-i-implement po ng kanyang plan, hindi po siya mag-deactivate. In the same manner po ito dun sa ating LGU. Kapag meron pong LGU na nag-activate pa po ng kanyang contingency plan, si province po hindi po magde-deactivate. Kahit isang LGU na lang yan. So lahat dapat nakapag-deactivate na school bago i-deactivate ni division ang kanyang plan. But anyways, these are all emanates from the higher up. So kapag ka-declare na po ng national na I think nagba-back to normal na po yung situation, but then subjective pa rin po yun. Kasi pagka sinabing sa national, iba-iba pa rin yung setting ng ating mga local government units. Hindi rin po natin alam. So po pwede po may autonomy na ang isang LGU ay magde-declare na po na okay na normalcy na ang kanilang situation. Gustong-gusto ko na yon, yung sitwasyon na yon. Of course, siguro lahat, yun po yung pinapanalangin. Ayun. So at least klaro na po dito yung sa portion ng deactivation natin. Next. Ayun. Non-activation naman, okay, let's say for example, after a year or 2 years time na nag-deactivate na po tayo, kung wala naman pong situation na nagtitrigger na kailangan siyang i-activate, so hindi po siya i-activate yung CP. So magiging living documents na lang po siya na at least naka-ready, prepared ang school should the need arise. Ayun po. So next, pababa na po. I think, ito yung mga definitions na lang po dito. Standard din po ito. Generic to sa lahat ng mga CP po natin. Next. I am down to the list of available, sorry po, pwede ko pa-update ulit. This is one important. Yung list of available resources, yung table po nito, don't forget to put in all the resources you have available na necessary po sa ating response for COVID-19. So in this case, meron pong medical services na resources sa ating SDO, may 4 na dentist, 5 dental aid, 25 nurses, at saka 2 occupational therapists. Nasa division office lahat po ang kanilang location. Yun. The same thing sa school. Kung ano po yung mga resources natin, ilan yung unit, ilan yung quantity, saan po nakalocate. So po pwede ilagay din po natin dito. Next. Sige po. Lahat po itong mga resources, megaphone, hand washing, thermal scanner. Yan. Sige po. Implementing partners natin, for the SDO, it's the Provincial Governor's Office. So on the end of the school, definitely the local government unit or the Office of the Mayor or any other offices na partners po natin sa pag-i-implement. The municipal health, the municipal DRRM, barangays, ayun, ilalagay po natin dito. Next. Sige pa po. Sige pa po. Down to our response and early recovery measures for DepEd Central Office, affected regions, and assistant regions. In this portion, hindi po tayo magpo-focus dun sa early recovery because mainly for the education sector, the biggest loss natin dito is the time. Yung oras na supposedly ay nakapag-aral na yung mga students, nakapagturo na tayo, etc. And, but, as implied, ang hirap pong i-recover yung time. So wala po tayo gaano pag-uusapan pagdating sa recovery when it comes to pandemic. So, ang nakalagay na lang dito is yung sa response timeline natin, specific po siya, from the 0 to 24 hours after the detection or of exposure to the virus. Ano po yung mga gagawin? So, nandito po, i-activate yung Health Emergency Management Team, i-establish natin yung coordination sa BHERT, coordinate yung sa city, Epidemiological Surveillance Unit, kasi nasa Balanga po yung opisina ni SDO. On the end naman po of the schools, I think this will be MESO, yung ating pong municipal. Tapos, establish po yung coordination ng contact tracing teams para ma-track, tapos suspension of work. That is within 24 hours. After ng 24 hours, pwede natin gawin yung disinfection, i-prepare po yung status report, mag-track po ng other affected learners, teaching and non-teaching personnel, tapos mag-conduct din po ng health assessment to DepEd personnel. After that, after 48 hours, 72 to 96, pwede na mag-resume ang mga non-contact personnel. Ito yung pinag-usapan natin kanina. Nilagyan lang po natin ng specific number of days and hours. Next. Ayan. The reason na nandito siya para sa recovery, kasi ito yung timeline na tinitignan natin, yung back to new normal of physical operations. Within 5 to 10 days na yung ganon. However, it's a different story if the barangay will declare lockdown. Kasi usually yung lockdown yun is 14 days. So concurrent pa rin po tayo dun sa gagawin po, action po na gagawin po ni barangay. Pero on the end of the school, ito na po yung naka-standard sa atin na in 5 to 10 days, po pwede na po tayong bumalik ulit sa ating usual activity. Next, please. Financial requirements. Ayun po. Yung pinaka-importanting factor na meron ng isang plan, unang-una is yung activity. Hindi, yung objective. Ano yung gusto mo mangyari? Pagdating dun sa objective, meron kang activity. Paano mo ma-achieve yung objective? After naman yung activity, kailangan nyo pong lagyan ng tao. Kung sino po yung gagawa ng activity na yon. And then, kailangan din pong lagyan ng timeline kung kailan po gagawin ng tao na yon yung activity. Isa din sa dapat din na meron ay funding. Kasi, merong tao na gagawa, alam niya kung kailan niya gagawin, alam niya kung anong gagawin niya, pero kung walang pera, parang hindi yata magiging posible. Oo, so ganun po ka-importante yung funding and requirements. So, with all of the identified activities na meron tayo doon sa ating mga previous chapters, ayun, ko-consolidate po natin, ilalagay po natin dito sa table. Pwede pong pakiakyat ng konti. Ayun po. So, at this point, may mga amount po na binigay si Division Office pertaining to the health monitoring, risk reduction and communication, disinfection, meeting and orientation, sa mga ganito. Okay. But then, I think when it comes to funding, meron po yatang kailangang i-resolve or something. So, what I suggest is for this year, kasi diba i-activate natin siya ng October 5. Hopefully, lahat makakapag-activate ng October 5 ng city. Hanggang sa end year ng December. Tapos, continuing siya next year, January to December. I think yun yung year na yun, ang pwede po nating lagyan ng budget. Kasi kung totally wala pong budget, ang plano na ito, I am not pretty sure kung paano po siya i-implement. So for this year, pwede sigurong blank na muna kasi may existing concerns po tayo pertaining sa funding. Siguro yung year 2021 to 2022, yun siguro po yung pwede nating lagyan ng approximate budget and of course the source. Kasi kung lagyan lang natin silang pera, amount, tapos wala ding budget, wala ding mapagkukunan, parang hindi rin. Parang hindi rin siya po pwede. Okay. So this is the chapter 7. Okay. So next na to ay, ayun. Maglalagay na po kung sino po yung nag-prepare ng plano na to, sino po ang nag-note, at sino po yung mag-a-approve. Yun. So, this ends the presentation of the draft. I think we are set to proceed with our open forum or the question and answer. Should there be questions to the discussed matters? So, Ma'am Gia.
Hi, ma'am. So, I'm back. Yan. Thank you so much, Ma'am Glenn. Napaka-thorough ng discussion. And talagang medyo, I know mapapagaan ang work ng ating DRRM coordinators sa ngayon dahil may template na po tayo. But then that details, of course, nakasalalay pa rin po yun sa bawat school head, and DRRM coordinators. Tama po ba, ma'am?
Yes po. It is very important na yung plano po natin ay talagang sa atin. Kasi iba po yung plano ng iba para sa atin. So for school, I do encourage everyone that we will do this plan by mind and by heart. Kasi at the end of the day, ito yung katulong natin kapag nasa sitwasyon na tayo ng uncertainty. So all will be nakasulat dito sa ating plano. We will be guided by this plan. So of course, hindi po in toto kasi pag nangyari po yung sitwasyon, iba-iba din po. At least meron po tayong sistema na pwede nating sundan. Ayun po.
Yes, ma'am. Siguro at this point in time, ma'am, 11:19 na. Diretso na po tayo sa ating open forum. And sasamahan po tayo ni Sir Ray Cruz, our Division DRRM Coordinator, to answer some of our questions. Ayan. Good morning, sir.
Good morning po, ma'am. Good morning sa lahat.
Okay, so para po sa ating first question po, malaki po ang responsibility ng DRRM coordinators at this time pandemic. Alin po kaya ang dapat na on top of these priorities? Sorry.
First and foremost, hindi lang si DRM coordinator, the entire COVID team ng school, ang malaki talaga yung responsibility this time of pandemic. So it goes hand in hand. Kailangan kasi yung continuity na learning nandoon, pero we will not compromise the safety and health ng ating personnel, ng teaching and teaching personnel, as well as our learners and their parents.
Yeah. Okay, for our next question po, siguro bibigay natin kay Ma'am Glenn. Ma'am Glenn, as challenge As challenge as we are now, ano po kaya ang mga takeaways na pwede nyo pong i-share para sa kagaanan ng performance task para sa mga DRRM coordinators?
Okay. Sige po. It is very, in these times, in these challenging times, kailangan we will be guided. Oo, yun po yung pinaka-importante sa atin. Unang-una, hindi lang po tayo gagalaw ng sa atin lang. So we need to refer, coordinate. As mentioned in the plan, nakita nyo naman po, meron tayong mga partners. Meron po tayong mga key players sa ating community. Kasi I agree with what Sir Ray says. We need to carry on our mandate, but without sacrificing our safety and health. So, kailangan in place po una is yung policies. Pangalawa, yung program, kung paano. Number 2, in place po ang ating sistema sa coordination. Sino ang kakausapin? Kailan ang kakausapin? Ano ang procedure? So when it comes to school, doon tayo sa grassroots, very important ang coordination natin sa barangay. We encountered kahapon, as I discussed with the Division of Balanga, ang pinaka-concern kasi dito is we are being barred to know who are those infected because of the confidentiality. Diba nakatago po yun. So we don't know na may mga parents, may mga families, ang ating mga learners na infected ng COVID-19. Tapos mai-expose yung part ng family nila dun sa ating mga teachers, yung pagbibigay ng modules, pagkukulik ng modules, etc. So, this is one thing that we need to resolve. First, mainly dun muna sa level natin sa barangay, that we will discuss with the barangays how are we going to protect our teachers, na paano namin, though we will not be asking kasi the guidelines is coming from the national, na ang makakaalam lang ng mga specific details ng mga tao na to are, of course, una is ang ating local chief executives, ang ating health workers, yung mga ganong bagay. Hindi po tayo nakasama doon, unfortunately. But at this time, since mag-carry on tayo ng ating mandate, we need to ask at least man lang leeway na sana masabihan tayo, ma-inform tayo for a specific infection levels. Kasi doon natin napoprotektahan yung ating mga guro kung may alam tayo. Pero kung hindi kasi natin alam, we are blinded. That is the problem. That is where the problems are. So, the same advice I can give to the school heads to discuss, to talk with your barangays and even the municipal health. Kasi ipaintindi lang po natin sa kanila, ganito po ka-importante yung detalye sa atin. That we will know that in a specific site, in a specific sitio or place or area, may nag-positive. Parang ganun po. So, I have answered the question. The question, what will be the priorities? First is we will be guided. So, ibig sabihin nito, kailangan alam natin kung ano yung sistema. System and coordination. Yun, with the local level. So, dyan din po kami nag-start dito sa DRRM when we activated our operations. We are in support, full support to the health office of the province. And that information sharing is very, very significant para po makapaggalaw din po kami ng tama at saka maike-carry on namin ang aming mandato. So given that access. So yun po.
Thank you, ma'am. Agree po ako doon sa information sharing. Ano po, proper use lang natin at confidentiality din para sa loob lang natin ang information. Okay po. For our next question, for Sir Ray. Sir Ray, may deadline daw po ba at i-check ba kapag nagmo-monitoring po kayo? I think nagre-refer po to dito po sa output natin, our con plan po per school. Sir Ray, naka-mute po ata kayo, sir.
Ay, sorry. So, we get the feedback from the ground. Alam naman namin ang teachers talaga medyo hirap ngayon. In this point in time, alam ko po, distribution po ng modules, kaya yung iba nating school DRM coordinators are not present. Kaya medyo mas maganda nga to recorded para ma-review din nila afterwards. Yung timeline ng submission ng con plan, to follow na lang po, considering na talagang loaded si teacher, hindi talaga nila matututukan ito, pero at least naibaba na natin sa kanila kung ano yung protocol, at least they know what to do at aware sila. To follow na lang po muna yun, then we will set na lang po ng date kung kailan po dapat talaga i-submit yung con plan for COVID.
Okay, sir. Thank you po. Next question po muna tayo for Ma'am Glenn. Ma'am, at this time daw po ng pandemic, ano po ba ano po kaya ang critical activities na dapat po tutukan or maging priority sa school DRRM po?
Okay. Na-mention po ni Sir Ray na po pwede nating i-defer yung pagpapasa po ng plano. For me, kabaligtaran po yung question. Kabaligtaran po yung isasagot ko. For the dream, make this as priority. Kasi ito po yung sinasabi ko, ito po yung guide ninyo sa ngayon. So at least give priority time to this plan. Kasi at the end of the day, isa ito sa mga nakaangat sa balikat ninyo na responsibilidad para sa school. So, make time for this plan. At least po masimulan at kasi ganito yon. Everyone can just make the plan. Ang pinaka-challenging po dito is to let everyone know in the organization that we have a plan, that this is our plan. So tama po yung sinabi ni Sir Ray, we can just submit it on a later time, but please, as of this time, talk about it, discuss about it, agree, and set the policies and direction. Siguro yun na po muna. Yun yung, kung ang tinatanong ay pinaka-priority, yun, doon tayo sa plano na to. You discuss it, you talk about it, you agree about it. Kasi at the end of the day, kahit wala pa po yung pinaka-actual na plan natin, but we have already an agreement on the system, on the procedure, we are on the track. Oo, kahit hindi pa po yan nakasulat, 'di ba? Alam naman natin na kapag talagang permado na, kasado na, saka yun na yun. Pero kung hindi na pag-usapan, it's baliwala. So, talking about priorities, you discuss, you talk about it, you agree, and then you set direction ng school.
Yes, ma'am. Siguro nga po gaya po na nabanggit niyo, ma'am, meron ng plan per school. Hindi lang natin na ilalapat sa flow nakaakma for contingency plan talaga. Like sa template po na naibigay, na-present nyo po sa amin kanina. Siguro maganda nga din po na kasabay ng ating preparation ay ito kasi safety po to eh. Tsaka ito po talaga ang ating magiging panghahawakan para po sa safety, hindi lang ng guro, hindi lang po ng magulang, pati talaga po ng mag-aaral. Agree po talaga ako dun, ma'am. Okay. Okay po.
Wala, it's non-negotiable pag sinabing safety ng teachers at saka learners.
Yes.
It's paramount.
Ma'am Gia,
Yes, sir. Yes po.
Ma'am Gia,
Yes, sir. Naririnig
ikaklaro ko
namin.
lang sa mga kasama natin on the ground. Kaklaro
Yes,
ko lang. Di-deepen lang natin pero tama yung sabi ni Ma'am Glenn, hindi ko sinabing huwag gumawa. Papalagpasin ko lang tong week na to kasi tong week na to talagang stress na sila. Then we have some feedbacks from the ground. Sabi, hindi raw sila mamamatay sa COVID kundi doon sa stress ng webinar, outputs, saka sabay-sabay, also the printing. So hindi ko kaklaro ko lang hindi magsasubmit. I-rest lang natin sandali yung ating kaisipan pero maghahanda na rin natin siya in a way na dapat talaga it is a must.
Yes, sir. I think clear po yon. Not for now, not for this week, incoming week, pero in the next mga weeks, maglalabas na po ng deadline si Sir Ray para sa inyo. Okay, for our last question po siguro, Sir Ray, para sa inyo po to. Ask lang po kung meron or kung saan daw po pwedeng makakuha ng copy na diniscuss at yung template po natin.
Bali, coordinated na kay Sir Richard. Pwedeng upon attendance po yata, ibibigay na po niya. Pwede po dun sa magbibigay siya ng link or sa amin din, pwede ko ibigay dun sa group chat ng PSDS as well as dun sa group chat ng District DRM Coordinators. Yung lahat ng possible na pwede nila ma-access yung presentation ni Ma'am Glenn, bibigay po natin para madali po nila magawa.
Okay, yes po. Upon submission daw po ng inyong evaluation and attendance, nasa pinakababa po yung link kung saan ma-access nyo daw po yung template at yung ating presentations. So, any reminders pa po, Sir Ray, para sa ating mga teachers and school heads po?
Una lang, ang pinaka-importante sa lahat, in doing our task, yung tinatawag na self-care. Kasi ang hirap pag tayo naapektuhan, hindi lang tayo, buong pamilya. Ang problema roon, ang hirap, hindi natin alam yung kalaban. Pero lagi tayong tatandaan na yung tinatawag na safety protocol in doing our jobs. Ginagawa natin to hindi lang para sa mga bata, kundi sa pamilya rin natin, para sa bayan. So, take extra care o pag-iingat para noon maiwasan natin. And then sana makatulong tong discuss namin sa inyo with the help of Ma'am Glenn. Siya yung ating expert dito para sa Conplan. Sa totoo lang, I'm very thankful na na-meet ko po si Ma'am Glenn kasi ang hirap talang gawin ng Conplan for COVID. Ang dami pong reaction po dyan, negative reaction coming from the top, kahit sa region. Na sinasabi bakit daw po binaba ito sa school DRM coordinator, hindi naman daw po tayo mga medical practitioner, wala tayong gano'ng alam sa medical, pero with the help of Ma'am Glenn, I think we have a safe protocol po para sa ating school. Mag-ingat po tayong lahat, stay safe and God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am Glenn, any final words po para sa ating participants? Yes, excuse me, Ma'am Glenn. Yes po. Nakamute po ulit kayo. Ayan.
Okay. Ayan na po.
Yes,
Ayan na.
ma'am.
Sige. I agree with Sir Ray. Self-care, opo. Kasi hindi tayo makakapag-deliver. We cannot give what we don't have. Di po ba? So, alagaan po natin ang ating mga sarili. Kasama po dyan ang pag-alaga na rin po sa mga ating nasasakupan, ating pamilya, and then we will extend it to the community, to our students, school teachers, etc. Kasi at these times of pandemic, tayo-tayo din po ang nagkakasama. Maging ano na lang po tayo sa ating sarili. Ingat at saka yun, stay safe, siguro with the guidance of the Lord, i-spare niya tayo para alam niya na meron po tayong purpose sa buhay natin na para mag-carry on ng ating mandate, the continuity of learning. So, ingat po lahat.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Glenn. And again, in behalf po, Ma'am, sa ating SDO Bataan and the SOCMOB family, we would like to extend our warmest thanks po na once again nakasama po namin kayo and for sharing your expertise with us. Thank you so much, Ma'am Glenn.
You're welcome. And sa ngalan po ng aking boss, Director Josefina Timoteo, and of course, Governor Albert Garcia, maraming salamat po sa opportunity na makapagbahagi kami at kahit pa paano ay makatulong sa ating mga guro at sa education sector per se. So, sa konting bagay at maliit na bagay namin nagagawa, pinapasalamatan namin kayo sa isang malaking opportunity at saka sa tiwala. Ayun po. Maraming salamat.
Thank you so much again, Ma'am Glenn. Okay, so few reminders bago po tayo tuloy-tuloy na magtapos sa umagang ito. Para po sa inyong mga selfies, huwag pong kakalimutan na ang ating hashtag, Handa Kami, hashtag SOCMOB DRRM, hashtag SDO Bataan DRRM, hashtag DepEd tayo, and hashtag DepEd tayo Bataan. Okay, also, pasalamat namin, gusto namin magpaabot ng pasasalamat sa lahat ng mga participants natin, both from our FB group and at the same time sa ating YouTube channel. Maraming salamat po sa inyong participations. We would like to remind you with this attendance and evaluation link, bit.ly/SDO-BTN-DRRM-CP-eval. Okay. So, type na po ang inyong mga attendance and evaluation through that link. At sa pinaka-bottom part po ay ang ating link para doon sa presentation and template. Okay, so muli pasasalamat din sa mga tao sa ating backstage persons, kay Ma'am Alma Garcia, ang ating overall chairman, Sir Ray Cruz, thank you so much, sir. To Ma'am Gloria Mati, thank you so much, ma'am. Sa ating technical team, Sir Richard Alboro, Sir Brian Ben Merenio of Mountain View Elementary School, to SDO Bataan, SOCMOB family, to our DRM coordinators from different schools, and to our school heads and PSDSS na kasama po namin sa umagang ito. So I think that ends our morning and our webinar. Allow me to give you this closing statement. By making contingency planning a regular part of our planning procedure, we ensure that we are always prepared to respond to crisis and mitigate the damage from everything from small problems to worst-case scenarios. And at the end of the day, our goals will always be safety and security. This is your host, Moderator Gea Crizaldo Oreta, signing off.